Hey all, Jordan with the Young Turks, TYT Politics. I am here in Berlin. It is Thursday, I believe. It's about 9:30 in the morning your time, a little bit later here. I've been here, I was speaking at a conference the other day, and now I am roaming around, frolicking through Berlin and trying to make sense of the world. I am at UFA Lab, which is a production company that does a whole lot of different stuff. And I'm speaking with Europeans on Medicare for all and the fact that Bernie Sanders has proposed Medicare for all, as well as the Republican and establishment freak out over Medicare for all. And they have some interesting topics. I was at a cafe earlier and I was just kind of talking to myself like I normally do. I was talking to the waitress, and an older gentleman asked me if I speak English or in native, and we started talking in English, and he said, "America, you're a bunch of barbarians, the way you treat your people." So I don't know if I'll get that now, but let me flip the camera around. I'm with Maurice. Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, Maurice.
Maurice. Yeah. So first, tell me, you're from here your whole life?
Yeah, from Hamburg originally, but been in Berlin for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do you do here at the lab?
I'm in charge of strategy and social media strategy, digital strategy for a whole bunch of projects, I suppose.
So I was talking to some people the other day because America likes to put out this image that we're the envy of the world, that all other countries are envious of America, and we're this shining democracy and blah blah blah. And a lot of the folks I speak with, at least in Germany, don't look at it that way.
I mean, it's a fascinating country. I mean, in many ways it is still fascinating as well. But I wouldn't want to live there right now anyway. And in terms of, you mentioned healthcare earlier, vacation time, all those things. I mean, it's crazy. It's lagging behind in those very important respects. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And obviously you're here. But a lot of the critics of universal health care say, oh, it's going to take away our basic freedoms when you allow the government to own entire industries like healthcare or education. They say it's going to make us bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then they actually say, look at other European countries, how they're faring. Yeah. I've been to a few European countries. I don't know. It seems like the street lights are on, businesses are open.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they seem to work. I mean, the northern European countries, they have much higher taxes. They have better healthcare. In Germany, at least, we have proper healthcare as well. In the UK, they've had universal healthcare for ages. So I mean, it does seem to be working. I'm sure you can make up a calculation. And I've heard all these numbers in the US being mentioned, all these billions of dollars that somehow we're going to, or you guys are going to lose if you introduce something, sort of universal healthcare. But I mean, there's so much to gain. We never having to worry about going to a doctor to whether you can afford treatment or something. And that's we grew up with this in Germany, and people are still growing up with this certainty that you're going to be all right, and that's so important.
And also, as a kind of young people, 20s, 30s, I know with me in America, I stayed in several jobs that I didn't really want to be in, but you need need health care and all those things. Where here, you could just tell by talking to people just, I don't know, just in the way they carry themselves, feel more, less stressed, like more, because work is work, and if you like it, great. If you don't, I could go somewhere else. There's not that thought about, I won't be able to go to the doctor if I leave my job.
No, that's right. I mean, it's one big thing less to worry about. I'm sure for young people it might not be that pressing because you don't have hip replacement or whatever is waiting for us later in life. But it's one less thing to worry about, and it's a huge thing for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And kind of talk about in Germany. I know healthcare is free. How's the education system? I know banking has a bit of a public aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, I mentioned the northern European countries, the Scandinavian countries earlier. I feel like they have much higher taxes there, and they seem to have a better public system of education and other things. Well, in terms of banking, we're still part of the global financial markets, so there's a long way to go. And in Europe, they're discussing a financial transaction tax or some parties are pushing for it, at least. So maybe we're sort of ahead of in some respects, but really it's if you look at the Deutsche Bank, our proud banking financial institution, they've gone through so much embarrassment and trouble over the last 10 years since the financial crisis. So it's not no paradise here either.
Mm-hmm. And in Germany, I say we live in the United Corporations of America because the corporations basically buy off the politicians. There's stricter rules here where politicians can't accept unlimited amounts of money. Correct?
The election cycles are way different over here. So there are stricter rules on party funding, and the cycle is shorter as well. So you only have a proper election campaign for 3 to 4, maybe 5 weeks. So it's not comparable at all to the States.
Because I think these same people that are crying about freedom and all that, in reality, I think in America they're trying to protect their donors because they get a lot of money from the drug companies and this and that. Whereas in Germany, there still is a private system, but the government negotiates the prices. Is that correct?
In terms of with the drugs, I'm not quite sure. I mean, there's influence on politics everywhere. I'm sure it's not as extreme or as obscene in the States in some respects, but we've had our own issues with the car industry, the motor industry, the Volkswagen and BMW. They had like a cartel running for a while with politicians involved or looking the other way at least.
So they could basically charge whatever they wanted.
Yeah, well, it was mostly about the way they sort of the regulations regarding what do you call it, like the
emissions.
Yeah, the stuff, the pollution of the air, right? So they were messing with the software, and all these big companies were sort of messing with the software in very much the same way. And
we've had that in America too.
So I mean, it's certainly not perfect here, but it's certainly not as obscene as in the States.
Yeah, and in Germany, obviously you don't know the budget, but America, they say we won't have money for other things, but Germany, European countries, it seems like you have a reasonably sized military. You have, enough money goes into education, infrastructure, things like that. And the German economy, for the most part, isn't it very low unemployment?
Yes, Germany has been doing very well, sort of, also because other European countries haven't. So it's a bit of a, if you look at the European picture, there's a lot of unemployment in Spain and Southern Europe and Italy. But no, Germany has been doing all right. And in a sense, I think when it comes to taxation and the way the government pays for infrastructure and public education and all that, I think, of course, we are more of there's, in the United States, people are very scared of redistribution and all that, and I think in Central Europe, at least, the public contract between people is a bit more so that people, the rich tend to give a bit more and are willing to give a bit more because they do see the necessity of having a broad public deal and helping those that don't have the same resources.
Well, that's interesting because I think in America, like around the 1980s, there was this whole mentality as, you ever see the movie Wall Street? Greed is good. I think that actually got into like people's heads and the politicians' head, because in America, I think the mentality is more make as much money as humanly possible, and everybody's out for themselves. Yeah. What's it like here?
We have those same guys as well, but they're not as powerful, I would say. Yeah, it's not been as pervasive here, that's for sure. Yeah.
And with the election coming up, the chancellor, generally speaking, there's not really problems with elections? Because in America, you see voting lines for like 9 hours in some places. You see the need for recounts, running out of ballots, shenanigans, I would say, with people, I think, maybe votes being changed or things like that.
Yeah, no, we don't have this whole voter registration issue, which, it's ridiculous in the States, I think.
So people are automatically registered?
Yeah, you do get a letter, and then you just have to bring an ID, and then you're done. Yeah. So it's and then we don't have this whole what's the term? The gerrymandering, right? The districts.
Yeah.
It's not as much of an issue here. We do have quite low voter turnout, though. It's only maybe, I'm not sure about the States, but over here it's not uncommon to have like only 60 people or 60% of the population going to
60%?
Yeah,
we have way less than 60%.
Yeah, it's 50 or something.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we don't have. I don't think there's this issue with the districts that you know in advance that you want to have voting lines in that district and not in this district, because this district tends to vote for you, so you can sort of we don't have that issue over here. No.
Would you say, not just Germany, but looking at America, does it seem kind of, what does it seem to you that we're supposed to have representatives that represent the people, yet they're allowed to take endless money from big banks, big oil companies, big pharmaceutical companies? Would you say that usually those people and groups donate money so that you'll do what they want?
Sure. There is a sense of a degree of corruption in politics anyway. There's always going to be, I think, because it's people making those decisions. But yeah, if you can restrict it, and I think European countries have managed to, or they seem to have managed better to restrict those kinds of donations. And even though it's always going to be, especially looking in the details, the way that corporations seem to get these, tax loopholes and all that. It's always going to happen, I think, but a country and a society can make a difference in, trying to restrict it as much as possible, at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And last question: do you think, America, every election, the politicians like to say, this is the most important election of our lifetime. You hear things like we're the richest country in the world, Ronald Reagan, I think, said we're a shining city on a hill. But I was expecting, I've interviewed a bunch of people so far, and I was expecting more when I asked, like, where have you been in America? Or would you like to go to America? A lot of people said they'd never been and have no interest in going. Yeah. And kind of, not just with Trump being president, but kind of think it's a bit of a laughingstock in some of its practices.
Yeah, it's funny that way because, of course, everybody over here is watching next Netflix series and going to the movies to see the next Hollywood blockbuster or whatever. But at the same time, there's a lot of ridiculous and depressing news coming out of the States with the whole racial tensions, which have seemingly gotten worse over the last decade or so, and then. Of course, the foreign policy under Bush was extreme, and then, Obama did, he appeared to, or he gave a different appearance at least, but with Trump now, for a lot of people, I think Trump has shown that, or for a lot of Germans, I think Trump has seems to express something about the States that they've maybe, that has been shining through at some points, but now it's very much in the open, this sort of ignorance and this sort of...
And there's obviously been, a lot of, I'd say, racial hysteria about the Muslims in Europe. Have you seen that in Germany too? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not as much as in other places, but it's luckily, we did have a terrorist attack at the end of last year, but we haven't had anything close to what Paris or France had had. It's widespread here as well, unfortunately.
And one more. In America, private prisons are a big problem. They're trying to profiteer, build up all these prisons. Prisoners aren't allowed to vote. Is there a big incarceration problem here?
Not that I know of. I mean, I'm sure there's been some attempts to privatize part of the prison system here as well, but no, not on the same scale. And we certainly do not have this this issue of having I don't know parts of the with the African Americans and being incarcerated at such high rates in the States, African American males. We I wouldn't say we have the same systemic problem here.
Yeah. And so I could tell my boss, do you think we should have a Young Turks office in Europe?
Yeah, sure.
That I run?
Yeah, who else?
I'm thinking of pitching that. All right, cool. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. All right, folks, I will be here. I will be here for a few more days, interviewing people, cafe hopping, getting some wine. Last night I had delicious German sausage, wine, and woke up rather late today. But I'm still working, so check out our videos from yesterday. Nomiki was on Capitol Hill for Bernie Sanders' announcement on universal health care. And I think it's interesting, the more people we speak to, they don't really have that interesting answers on universal health care because it's really not an interesting topic to them because they just have it. So it's kind of just like, why are you asking me this? It would be like us being asked, like, what do you think of the garbage being picked up at your house? You know, it's just like, it's a normal part of life, so you don't really think much about it. But I remember while I was watching Bernie's speech yesterday with a friend, the friend kind of laughed and was like, "Oh, such celebration about doing what everyone else does." So she wasn't mocking Bernie, but she was just kind of mocking the concept that, like, in 2017, this is considered a big deal, and that you even have to put forward legislation for Medicare for all. So we'll have more videos up. Like I said, Nomi was there yesterday, and I'll be doing some more things here. So thank you for watching.